Yo, hello there. Our show today is focused on getting up to date on the Upper Harbor Terminal redevelopment and celebrating a big win we were able to achieve a few weeks back. But I wanted to cut in before we get to the episode with some urgent news and another ask for our listeners. If you're listening to this right now in Minnesota, you know that we are experiencing the coldest temperatures of the winter. Lethal, below zero polar vortex cold. The city of Minneapolis decided that this was a good time to deliver eviction notices to a community of unsheltered neighbors in near North Minneapolis. This encampment has strong support from neighbors and has built infrastructure and community to shelter in place as safe as possible during the COVID pandemic and this brutal Minnesota winter. After much duplicity and false promises, the city of Minneapolis delivered a notice that if the encampment is not cleared by Friday, February 15th, that the residents will be forcibly removed and all their belongings will be discarded. The city has provided these people with no alternative housing options, even cruelly suggesting they go to congregate shelters when the city knows that those shelters are full. And besides being full, the city knows that those shelters are unsafe due to COVID. What's even more maddening about the city notice is that the lot where people are encamped is owned by the city, by CPED, the City Department of Community Planning and Economic Development that is responsible for real estate projects like the Upper Harbor Terminal. In fact, it was Erik Hanson, the lead staff on the Upper Harbor Terminal project, who delivered the eviction notice to the encampment. What a sick administration where someone like Erik Hanson makes high six-figure salaries to push the will of big money real estate developers like I have personally seen him do over and over in this Upper Harbor Terminal process, while at the same time he's pushing unsheltered Minneapolis residents off of public land and into possible death in this frigid Minnesota February. Shame on Erik Hanson and shame on the Fry administration. We're asking folks to call and email Hanson and the mayor to let them know that this is unacceptable, to demand that they rescind the eviction notice for the Near North encampment, and to quit their jobs if they're going to continue pushing their gentrification schemes. We got information for who to call and email, and also links to provide aid to the encampment in the show notes. One more quick update before we get to today's show. On last week's episode, we talked with powerhouse organizers from Midway Rise Up and the Frogtown Neighborhood Association who are contesting an odious development on Lexington and University. We got some good news to report. The St. Paul Planning Commission voted against the project last Friday morning. A big win for the working classes in St. Paul who showed a really strong organizing effort. We're going to keep building with those folks and have more thorough updates on that struggle coming soon. All right, Isaac, cue that intro.
I'ma work for it, ride for it, I'ma organize for it, stay up in the night and in the morning, I'ma rise for it, heart for it, mind for it, ears for it, eyes for it, peace and a place on this earth for me and mine for it, work for it, ride for it, I'ma organize for it, stay up in the night and in the morning, I'ma rise for it, heart for it, mind for it, ears for it, eyes for it, peace and a place on this earth for me and mine for it.
Hey, peace, thanks for tuning in to the Money, Power, Land Solidarity Podcast. We're checking in today with an exciting update from the Upper Harbor Terminal redevelopment. The Upper Harbor Terminal Coordinated Plan was until recently scheduled for a city council vote on February 16th. Community members for environmental justice and the Minnesota Center for Environmental Advocacy took the lead in January, pushing back against the city council, demanding they delay this vote until the mandatory environmental review called the AUAR is completed. The city is mandated by law to complete an AUAR before any development can be approved. But at the behest of this billionaire developer and overzealous development team, the city was trying to fudge the law and approve the plan before doing an environmental review. If you listen to our episodes with community members for environmental justice leader Roxanne O'Brien about the Northern Metals Recycling Plant, or our coverage of the GAF Shingles Factory, you know that the Northside Riverfront has been the site of toxic industry that has poisoned North and Northeast Minneapolis for decades. The city's attempt to approve this development before extensive environmental review is completed and understood is pouring salt on the wound of environmental racism and destructive capitalism in North and Northeast Minneapolis. Fortunately, we fought back. Because of the pressure organized by CMEJ and the Minnesota Center for Environmental Advocacy, we were able to stop this vote. Last week, the city announced that they have canceled the February 16th vote and committed that no vote on the Upper Harbor Terminal Development Plan will be taken until the AUAR is completed and understood. We wanted to get on the mic today and commend and appreciate community members for environmental justice, the Minnesota Center for Environmental Advocacy, and everybody out there listening who took the time to contact their city council member, to contact the mayor, to talk to your neighbors, to raise awareness. We have won, and what we've won ourselves is more time to organize. I also want to be clear that Community Members for Environmental Justice is by no means the only group calling for a delay on the vote and agitating for a new vision at the Upper Harbor Terminal. Every online session that I've attended, I've heard people raising concerns about the lack of affordable housing in the Upper Harbor Terminal Coordinated Plan. I've heard concerns about the impact of the music venue, and I've heard concerns about the ownership structure of the music venue. I've heard concerns about rising property taxes from working class mortgage holders. I've heard concerns about rising rents and displacement from renters. I've heard concerns about the impact of traffic on site. I've heard concerns about the lack of engagement with the Dakota and Anishinaabe people through this process. And I've heard many affirmations of the environmental concerns raised by CMEJ, Friends of the Mississippi River, and others. This fall, the traveling murals created by our friend Sebastian Rivera popped up all over the north side and have got people talking. The group of North Minneapolis pastors, including Reverend Dr. Bell, who appeared on our show this summer, are still pointing to the link between capitalist real estate development and white supremacy. The city of Minneapolis's own public record from the recently closed public comment period shows consistent, wide-ranging opposition to moving this plan forward. That is not to say that there is no support for this project. There are those who feel this project is great for a variety of reasons. There are also those I know who recognize this plan as imperfect, but who have worked hard trying to shape this current proposal and want it to move forward despite its flaws for fear of nothing else happening on the site. There are a wide range of perspectives on the Upper Harbor, but there is nothing near broad political will or support for this current plan. This will be one of the most impactful development decisions for generations on the north side, in Northeast, and really across the entire region. And I don't think we even have broad working class awareness that this project exists. That's all the more reason to celebrate the canceled February vote. Our work now is to bring more working class people into the conversation, to democratize this process by asking renters and working class homeowners in North and Northeast Minneapolis what they need and want around housing, around health, in their relationship to the river, in education. We need to continue to inform and to agitate working class people around this current plan. The United Properties project still being defended by the city was first championed by former Ward 5 Councilwoman and arch-conservative Barb Johnson, who is tellingly now a lobbyist for the GAF Shingles Corporation. After the Northside ousted her from her seat, after all the lip service about racial equity, after COVID, and after the uprisings of 2020, it's unacceptable for the city to cling to this unjust proposal from Minneapolis's financial and political elite. We should ask ourselves a simple question about every proposed development. Is this going to consolidate our hierarchical distribution of wealth and power, or will this redistribute wealth and power? Clearly, giving exclusive rights to one of the dominant private real estate firms in the city, who already have massive property holdings and political influence, is a consolidation of wealth and power. Because the 48 acres at the Upper Harbor are currently owned by the city, we have an opportunity to box out the domineering white billionaires and structure a development around the working classes of North and Northeast Minneapolis, around the ecology of the river, and towards a more just future. Development projects like this are a process of unbridled class warfare. The capitalist class sets its sights on a piece of land and fights to name, to control, to dominate, and to profit from that land. In this case, the Polads have been working for more than a decade to assure that they will control and profit from the future of the Northside riverfront. In opposition, waves of working class Northsiders have contested that claim, have taken up the fight for community control. The interests of real estate capitalists looking for private profit and the interests of the working classes looking for collective wealth are directly opposed. We have to understand that all the community engagement sessions and committee meetings of every development project are about mediating that conflict. We have to be in these spaces contending for power. Stopping the city planned vote in February was a concession won for the working classes from the owning classes through organizing and activism. I wanted to talk today a bit and reflect on another aspect of the current Upper Harbor plan where we have won an important concession, and that is ownership of the land. The original development plan and the concept plan approved by the City Council in 2018 called for the city of Minneapolis to sell the land at the Upper Harbor Terminal to United Properties. This is the standard practice for our neoliberal city. For example, the city sold another piece of public land to United Properties downtown on Hennepin in Washington, where they are currently building the exclusive luxury Gateway skyscraper. This privatization of the land was one of the key critiques raised by this podcast and many others critical of the project. Through our consistent pressure, we were able to push the city to change their development agreement with United Properties. The plan now calls for the city to retain ownership of the land under the majority of the development and to charge a yearly ground lease to the developer for access to the land. This retention of public ownership is a channel of redistribution. When the city sells land to a private entity, it gets a one-time payment and it gives up control. When the city retains public ownership, it retains control and can generate yearly payments that far exceed the one-time price of sale. The concept plan now calls for yearly revenue generated by the ground lease to be directed back into investments in North Minneapolis. This is a positive development. Public money generated yearly to benefit North Minneapolis residents. But unfortunately, the city stops there, and the rest of the development reverts to the neoliberal real estate logic of the original plan. The concept plan calls for United Properties to build buildings on top of the public land, which will make them landlords both for commercial tenants and for renters in luxury apartments and in mixed income tax credit, quote unquote, affordable apartments. The redistributive impact of retaining public ownership of the land is stunted by privatizing the buildings that go on the land, giving that economic opportunity to the oligarch developer at the expense of working class Northsiders. The logic of public ownership as a redistributive economic engine can be extended to the commercial spaces, to the music venue, and to the housing built on site. The city has the power to finance the construction of the buildings themselves, to use the public sector to build attractive, high-quality apartments, a breathtaking concert venue, innovative state-of-the-art commercial spaces. Just like with the land, retaining public ownership of the housing, of the venue, and of the commercial buildings would generate consistent streams of public revenue. The millions that would be going to United Properties and First Avenue every year would instead be coming back to us. Beyond yearly public revenue, public ownership also means more control over who gets to program the venue, over who gets to open a business on site, and it allows for deeper affordability across the board. It also opens up space for us to integrate public and cooperative ownership models to distribute the maximum amount of wealth and power back to the working classes. The question at hand here is, will the assets, the wealth-producing elements, be owned by white billionaires or held collectively and redistributed justly? I wanted to reflect on this because retention of public ownership is an important concession and we should celebrate that we've won that. But it should catalyze us to demand more, not be used as a cudgel by the city against further demands. I was hoping this could be a quick update on the Upper Harbor. This is just one scenario we ran through. More importantly, what we wanted to do was celebrate community members for environmental justice, the Minnesota Center for Environmental Advocacy, Sebastian, Friends of the Mississippi River, so many people out there who have been contributing, who've been raising their voices. We got a big win, and also wanted to invite us to take the next step as we build out a working class, cooperative, socialist alternative to capitalist development. Thanks for tuning in. Please like the show, leave us a review, rate us, and if you can, subscribe on Patreon. We got $2, $5, and $10 options. Gets you access to bonus shows, to some songs, to exclusive merchandise, and most importantly, it helps you contribute to feeding this working class art and working class journalism. Money, power, land, solidarity.
We need money, land, solidarity. If you're funny, stand very far away from me. We have running plans about as